I want to go back to your essay. Douglas MacArthur is the father of modern Asia. Give me 2 or 3 minutes on that. About why do you make that case?
First of all, because he rehabilitates Japan and brings Japan back from basically a broken country, destroyed
We
during the war,
firebombed it into the Stone Age.
into what became the second largest economy in the world. Now slips to third, but carries that out. Also because he also rebuilt the Philippines, and the way in which Philippines was not only liberated during the war, but also becomes a bastion of American leadership especially during the Vietnam War. He helps also to keep the Taiwan and independent Taiwan through his advocacy for the important fact that this is, as he puts it, an unsinkable aircraft carrier if it falls into the wrong hands, for being able to strike and to threaten U.S. presence anywhere in the Pacific. And then also, too, I think because he understood that what was happening in China with its entry into the Korean War was not just an historical mistake. It wasn't just because
people
American
don't realize
troops,
is we fought the real part of the Korean War is we fought the Chinese army.
we fought it. That's right.
Mano a mano. That's why there's never been. It's still an armistice. We fought to a draw.
That this was not just a battle, not just a Korean Civil War. This was about China's emergence as a dangerous power in the world, and that America had to respond appropriately to that threat. His advice was disregarded. The idea was, no, we got to end this conflict as quickly as possible, draw up an armistice, and let's move on. But it was then the rise of China.
He was fired because of this.
He was fired because of it.
He was
because he saw it as a moment in which the United States had to choose again, like his father had said, between
at the nominating convention for Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1952. Someone turned to MacArthur when they were watching on TV and said, "Tell me about Eisenhower. He had worked for you for many years. You many Eisenhowers." He goes, "Dwight Eisenhower is the best clerk that ever worked for me." Why did Eisenhower end up being president and not Douglas MacArthur?
You want to do another program on that?
I do. Give me a short. Give us a tee up to the next one. He meant it. He says the best clerk that ever worked for me.
Yeah.
Why did he feel that, and why was he not in that nominating committee becoming president of the United States?
I think it had to do with Korea. And I think that was what Eisenhower promised to do in Korea. Remember his famous statement? You may not remember, you're not old enough. His famous statement, "I will go to Korea." And the idea was he's the man who will wind this conflict down. Douglas MacArthur is the one who said...
It was the Iran of its day.
People
just wanted it out.
That's a really good comparison.
No, people just wanted it out.
People wanted it.
They've been war-weary, they're just tired, and this war is so brutal.
But I'll put it this way. If we had followed Douglas MacArthur's advice during the Korean War, there would have been no Vietnam.
Give me that. We got a couple more. What do you mean by that? His advice was to lay down a wall of radiation at the Yalu River.
If necessary. We turn to that. But his point is that, and I think if you look at military analysts who come to understand what the situation was during the Korean War and also in China in 1950-51, that what he realized was that Mao's move and his advance into Korea was also an act of desperation, that his government, his rule was vulnerable at that moment, that Mao had committed so many forces, and so much of his military force to the fighting in Korea, of which he was taking a terrible beating. China was losing by the tens of thousands in the face of the American response, that the moment had come when you would be able to topple the regime. Mao's regime was vulnerable, and if America moved boldly and swiftly enough, particularly if we unleashed Chiang Kai-shek and his divisions still mobilized, still ready for action on the island of Formosa in Taiwan, that the possibility would come, if not actually to topple Mao's regime entirely, to force a partition of China in a way that would be beneficial to the United States and the West, and that would truncate both Mao's plans for domination in Asia, but also Soviet Union's plans for domination as well.